You started intermittent fasting for a reason. Maybe it was weight loss. Maybe it was better blood sugar control. Maybe you wanted sharper focus, more energy, or a longer life. Millions of Americans are doing the same thing right now. Fasting has become one of the most talked about health strategies of the last decade. But here's the question almost nobody asks. While you're skipping breakfast, while your body is switching to fat for fuel, while insulin drops and ketones rise, what is happening to your hair? Why do some people swear their hair looks thicker and healthier after fasting, while others quietly notice more strands in the shower drain? The answer isn't simple. It isn't hype. And it isn't fear-based. It's biology. And inside your body, a fascinating conversation is happening between hormones, survival systems, and tiny structures in your scalp that most people never think about. Before we go deeper, a quick note. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice. If you're experiencing significant hair loss or health changes, speak with a licensed healthcare professional. Now let's rewind time. Here is something that might surprise you. Humans have been fasting intentionally for over 2,000 years. Ancient Greek physicians, including the legendary Hippocrates, observed that sick patients naturally lost their appetite. Rather than forcing food on them, early healers allowed the body to rest from digestion. They believed the body had an incredible ability to heal itself when given the right conditions. That idea never really went away. Today, millions of Americans practice intermittent fasting every single day, chasing real and documented health benefits. But here is where the story gets interesting. If fasting is supposed to help the body repair and regenerate, why are so many people reporting hair thinning and shedding after starting a fasting routine? And why do others claim fasting made their hair stronger and healthier than ever? The answer lies deep inside a tiny structure in your skin that most people never think about. To understand what fasting does to your hair, you first have to understand how hair actually works. Every single strand of hair on your head grows from a tiny organ called a hair follicle. Think of it as a microscopic factory embedded in your scalp. Inside each follicle are specialized stem cells whose entire job is to manufacture new hair fiber. These follicles are remarkably active little structures, but they do not work around the clock without interruption. Hair growth happens in carefully programmed cycles, and understanding these cycles is the key to understanding everything we are going to talk about today. The first phase is called the anagen phase, which is the active growth stage. During this phase, your hair is growing roughly half an inch per month. This phase can last anywhere from 2 to 7 years depending on your genetics and your overall health. The stem cells inside your follicles are firing on all cylinders. They are consuming energy, building protein, and pushing that hair fiber out with remarkable consistency. This is the phase you want your hair spending as much time in as possible. After the anagen phase comes a brief transition period called the catagen phase, lasting only 2 to 3 weeks. The follicle begins to shrink and hair production slows dramatically. Then the follicle enters the telogen phase, or resting phase, which lasts about 3 to 4 months. During telogen, the hair just sits there, no longer attached to the blood supply, waiting to be shed. Eventually the old hair falls out, the follicle resets, and a brand new growth cycle begins all over again. Here is the critical piece of information that ties everything together. Under normal conditions, your hair follicles are all on slightly different schedules. Some are growing, some are resting, some are shedding. That is why you lose 50 to 100 hairs per day, without noticing, because new ones are always replacing them. But when your body experiences significant stress, something goes wrong. Large numbers of follicles can suddenly shift into the resting phase all at the same time. When a large wave of follicles enters the resting phase simultaneously, the result shows up 2 to 3 months later as sudden, dramatic shedding. This condition is called telogen effluvium, and it is one of the most common forms of hair loss in adults. The 2 to 3 month delay is exactly why people often do not connect their hair loss to the lifestyle change that caused it. The first hormone is cortisol. When you fast, your body detects the absence of incoming food and treats it as a survival challenge. Cortisol is released by your adrenal glands to help manage. It signals your liver to release stored glucose. It keeps you alert and energized. In short bursts, this is completely healthy and normal. Cortisol naturally peaks in the morning and drops at night. The issue arises when cortisol stays elevated for extended periods. Prolonged high cortisol is associated with a wide range of health disruptions, including poor sleep, increased inflammation, slower wound healing, and, critically for our conversation today, disrupted hair growth. High cortisol can push hair follicles out of the active growth phase and into the resting phase. It can also impair the circulation of nutrients to the scalp, and it can create an internal environment where hair simply cannot thrive. In 2024, researchers at a major medical university published a study that gives us some of the clearest human evidence to date on how cortisol affects hair. The study enrolled 120 patients experiencing hair loss and divided them into two groups based on whether they were under significant psychological stress. Cortisol was measured in blood samples taken 3 times per day, in the morning, in the evening, and at midnight. Researchers also used precise instruments to measure the actual thickness and density of each patient's hair. The findings were direct and measurable. The stressed patients had significantly higher cortisol readings at every single time point throughout the day. Manage that challenge. The connection was not theoretical. It was documented with real numbers from real people, but the study went even further. What this tells us is both sobering and important. When cortisol is chronically elevated, not only does hair quality decline, but even medical treatment becomes less effective. This is not a scare tactic, it is measured clinical data. And it has a direct and very real connection to fasting. When you fast, especially aggressively or for extended periods, your cortisol levels rise. Your body is doing exactly what it is designed to do. But the downstream effect on your hair follicles can be significant if that elevated cortisol persists over weeks and months. Now let us talk about the second major hormone in this story. It is called IGF-1, which stands for insulin-like growth factor 1. And its main job is to promote growth and cellular repair throughout your body, including your muscles, your bones, and your hair follicles. When you eat regularly, especially adequate protein, your IGF-1 levels stay elevated. When you fast for extended periods, IGF-1 levels decline. This drop is sometimes cited as a benefit of fasting for longevity, but it comes with trade-offs. Scientists have been studying IGF-1 and hair for over 2 decades. The findings are remarkably consistent. When researchers applied IGF-1 directly to isolated hair follicles in laboratory settings, the follicles remained in the active growth phase for a significantly longer period. Hair fibers grew longer and stronger. When IGF-1 was blocked, follicles shifted into the resting phase earlier. Hair growth slowed noticeably. This is not a distant or obscure finding. It has been replicated across multiple studies in multiple settings over many years. There is also a rare genetic condition that serves as a powerful natural experiment. People with a condition called Laron syndrome cannot produce functional IGF-1 due to a genetic mutation affecting growth hormone receptors. Among the documented characteristics of people with this condition is notably sparse, thin, slow-growing hair. Their scalps often show early recession and reduced density. Their hair simply does not grow with the same vigor as people with normal IGF-1 function. Nature itself has shown us how essential this hormone is for healthy hair. Researchers have also found that hair follicles in areas of the scalp affected by hair loss produce significantly less IGF-1 than follicles in areas with healthy, thick hair. This pattern appears consistently across multiple studies. The follicles that are struggling are the ones that are already low in this critical growth signal. So when your IGF-1 drops during fasting, you may be removing one of the key biological signals your follicles depend on to stay in the active growth phase. Here's where the science becomes genuinely fascinating. Your body is not broken when it reduces hair growth during fasting. It is actually being brilliantly intelligent. When food intake drops, your body faces a resource management challenge. Your brain, which accounts for roughly 20% of your total energy consumption, is non-negotiable. Vital organs get priority. Hair, from a pure survival standpoint, is considered a low-priority luxury tissue. So your body redirects resources away from hair growth to protect the systems that keep you alive. Not everyone loses hair. First, let us be clear about something important. Not everyone who practices intermittent fasting experiences hair problems. Many people fast consistently for years and maintain completely healthy, full hair throughout. The difference comes down to several key factors, including the type of fasting they practice, what they eat during their eating windows, how much overall stress they are carrying, and how long they have been fasting. Understanding these variables puts you in control of your outcome in a very real way. The duration and intensity of your fasting protocol matters enormously. A 16-hour fast with an 8-hour eating window is a very different biological experience compared to doing 23-hour fasts or multi-day extended fasts several times per week. The longer and more frequent your fasting periods, the higher and more sustained your cortisol response tends to be. If you are experiencing hair changes, the first honest question to ask yourself is whether your fasting schedule might simply be more aggressive than your body is currently ready to handle. If you are doing 20-hour daily fasts and noticing hair thinning, consider stepping back to a 16-8 protocol instead. If you are fasting every single day, try introducing 2 or 3 non-fasting days per week. Give your body breathing room. The research on fasting benefits does not require extreme protocols to be effective. Many of the documented health improvements from intermittent fasting occur well within moderate fasting windows. You do not need to push your body to its absolute limit to see real results. The second major factor is what you eat during your eating window. This is where many people unknowingly undermine their own hair health. When you compress your eating into a shorter window, it is surprisingly easy to underconsume critical nutrients even if you are eating relatively healthy foods. Your hair is made primarily of a structural protein called keratin. Without adequate dietary protein, your body literally does not have the raw materials needed to build strong, healthy hair fiber. Protein should be a non-negotiable priority at every meal. Beyond protein, there are several specific micronutrients that are directly linked to hair growth and follicle health. Iron is one of the most common deficiencies associated with hair loss in women, and fasting can make it easier to fall short on iron if you are not paying attention. Zinc plays a critical role in follicle cell division and repair. Biotin supports keratin production. Vitamin D has receptors in hair follicles, and low levels are consistently linked to hair thinning in published research. Consider having your levels tested if you are concerned. When you break your fast, prioritize nutrient density over everything else. Lean proteins like eggs, chicken, fish, and legumes should anchor your meals. Include iron-rich foods such as spinach, lentils, and lean red meat. Nuts and seeds provide zinc and healthy fats that support scalp circulation. If you suspect you are falling short on specific nutrients, a blood panel from your doctor can give you clear data rather than guesswork. Targeted supplementation based on confirmed deficiencies is far more effective than taking everything and hoping for the best. The third factor is your total stress load. Remember that fasting is itself a form of biological stress. It is a controlled, often beneficial stress, but your body does not always distinguish between types of stress when measuring cortisol output. If you are simultaneously dealing with poor sleep, high work pressure, relationship difficulties, or major life changes, adding aggressive fasting on top of all of that can push your cortisol to a level where hair loss becomes a real risk. Timing and life context genuinely matter here. Protecting your hair while fasting may require you to invest in reducing other stressors simultaneously. Consistent quality sleep is one of the most powerful cortisol regulators available to you without a prescription. Regular moderate exercise supports hormonal balance and reduces background stress. Mindfulness practices, even 10 minutes of quiet breathing daily, have been shown in clinical studies to measurably lower cortisol over time. These are not soft suggestions. They are legitimate biological interventions that directly impact the hormonal environment your hair follicles live in. The fourth factor is time. Your body is remarkably adaptable, but adaptation takes time. If you just started intermittent fasting in the last month or two, your body is still learning a new pattern. The initial cortisol response to fasting often moderates significantly as your body becomes metabolically adapted to your new routine. Many people who experience some hair shedding in the first 2 to 3 months of fasting find that it stabilizes and normalizes as their body adjusts. Do not make major panic decisions based on early data alone. That said, there are clear signs that warrant professional evaluation. If you are consistently losing more than 100 hairs daily over a period of weeks, that is beyond normal. If your part is visibly widening or your ponytail is noticeably thinner, take it seriously. If hair loss continues beyond 6 months of fasting despite dietary improvements and schedule adjustments, it is time to see a doctor. A dermatologist or endocrinologist can run blood panels to identify whether thyroid function, nutrient levels, or other hormonal factors are contributing to what you are experiencing. Quick reminder before you go. Everything shared in this video is strictly for educational purposes and does not constitute medical advice. Hair loss has many potential causes, and individual results from fasting vary widely. Always consult a licensed healthcare professional before making significant changes to your diet or health routine. Your doctor or a board-certified dermatologist is your best resource for personalized guidance.